DIY Tiny Rustic Patio Makeover, creating a relaxing space with recycled materials. The journey began with a forgotten, dusty corner of the backyard that held more potential than the eye could see. I envisioned a quiet retreat where the morning light could filter through the trees and settle on a surface built from history. This wasn't just about adding a patio, it was about reclaiming a space for peace and reflection. The soul of a rustic project lies in the materials, so I spent days gathering discarded items that still had stories to tell. From weathered bricks found at a local demolition site to old wooden pallets tucked away in a warehouse, each piece felt like a puzzle waiting to be solved. These weren't just scraps, they were the foundation of beauty. Laying the first few bricks felt like setting the heartbeat of the patio. I chose a pattern that felt organic and aged, rather than a sterile, modern design. The deep reds and earthy browns of the reclaimed clay began to form a mosaic that looked as if it had been part of the landscape for decades. As the surface grew, I noticed the unique imperfections in each recycled stone, the chipped edges and faded patinas. These small flaws were actually the highlights of the design, providing a texture that new materials simply cannot replicate. The patio began to breathe with a character that only time and reuse can provide. To add warmth to the stone foundation, I introduced salvaged timber elements that framed the edges. The silver-gray hue of the sun-bleached wood sat in perfect harmony with the surrounding greenery. This intersection of hard stone and soft, aged wood created a visual transition that felt entirely natural and deeply inviting. No landscaping art is complete without the soft touch of nature's own decor. I selected low-maintenance ferns and mosses to tuck into the crevices and along the perimeter. These plants acted as the lace on a vintage dress, softening the hard lines and grounding the structure firmly into the ecosystem of the garden. As I worked, the sound of the wind through the leaves seemed to change, caught now by the new structures I was placing. The space started to feel enclosed and private, a secret room without walls. The transition from a chaotic yard to an intentional sanctuary was becoming visible with every passing hour of the day. I hung a few lanterns crafted from recycled glass jars, positioning them to catch the fading afternoon sun. The way the light danced off the irregular surfaces of the reclaimed materials was mesmerizing. Even without being lit, these glass accents added a touch of whimsy and sparkle to the rugged, earthy environment. Rustic art thrives on the lack of perfection, so I intentionally avoided straight lines and perfect right angles. I let the patio curve slightly to follow the natural slope of the land. This choice made the makeover feel like a discovery rather than an intrusion, blending the human touch with the wildness of the outdoors. For the seating, I repurposed an old garden bench that had seen better days, giving it a light sanding but keeping its worn-out charm. Placing it onto the newly laid bricks brought a sense of purpose to the space. It was no longer just a project, it was now a place where one could finally sit and stay. To contrast the hardness of the recycled materials, I brought in cushions made from natural linens and burlap. The muted tones of cream and sage green complemented the rustic palette perfectly. These soft additions invited comfort and warmth, turning a construction project into a genuine living area for relaxation and quiet thought. Every patio needs a surface for a cup of tea or a book, so I used a section of a fallen oak tree as a side table. The raw bark and the visible rings of the wood added a sculptural element to the corner. It served as a reminder that the best art is often provided by nature itself. As the sun moved across the sky, the patio transformed into a theater of shadows. The tall trees nearby cast long, elegant silhouettes across the brickwork. Watching the patterns change reminded me that landscaping is a living art form, one that evolves with the time of day and the changing seasons. It wasn't long before the local wildlife began to investigate the new addition. A small robin perched on the wooden border, chirping its approval of the recycled sanctuary. Knowing that the space felt safe and natural enough for the birds made the entire makeover feel like a success beyond mere aesthetics. During a brief afternoon shower, the scent of wet brick and damp wood filled the air, creating a sensory experience that was purely magical. The colors of the recycled materials deepened and glowed under the moisture. The patio looked even more beautiful when it was weathered by the elements, proving its resilience. To connect the patio to the rest of the garden, I laid a small trail of stepping stones gathered from a nearby stream. This path wasn't just functional, it was a visual invitation to leave the stress of the world behind. Each step toward the patio felt like a step toward a calmer state of mind. I didn't stop at the ground level. I used recycled lattice to create a backdrop for climbing vines. As the ivy begins to crawl up the weathered wood, it will create a green wall of privacy. Thinking about the future growth of the plants added a layer of anticipation to the project. I kept the additional decor to a minimum, allowing the recycled materials to be the stars of the show. A single weathered pot and a handful of river stones were all that was needed to finish the look. In the world of rustic landscaping, often less is significantly more when trying to achieve a peaceful vibe. The recycled glass elements I installed began to glow as the golden hour approached. They acted like small beacons of light amidst the heavy textures of wood and stone. This contrast between the fragile glass and the sturdy reclaimed materials created a sophisticated balance that elevated the entire design. Standing in the center of the completed patio, I felt a profound sense of being grounded. There is something incredibly stabilizing about being surrounded by materials that have survived and been repurposed. It gives the space an energy of endurance and quiet strength that modern materials often lack. Running my hand over the various surfaces, the rough bark, the smooth glass, the grainy brick, was a reminder of why I love landscaping art. It is a tactile experience as much as a visual one. The patio was a library of textures, each one offering a different sensation to the touch. I realized that this patio would only get more beautiful as it aged further. The wood would gray, the moss would spread, and the bricks would settle deeper into the earth. Designing with the future in mind allows the art to grow and change, becoming a permanent part of the home's history. I imagined the many mornings that would be spent here, watching the world wake up. The patio provides the perfect stage for the simple acts of life, sipping coffee, writing in a journal, or just breathing in the fresh air. It is a functional masterpiece dedicated to the art of slowing down. This project was a testament to the fact that we don't need to buy new things to create something extraordinary. By looking at trash with the eyes of an artist, I was able to build a high-end retreat for almost no cost. Sustainability and beauty are two sides of the same coin in this makeover. Stepping back to look at the finished space through the camera lens, the composition was perfect. The rustic patio sat nestled in the garden like it had always been there. The recycled materials gave it an instant soul, making the makeover feel more like a homecoming for the backyard. As night fell, I lit the small candles in the jars, and the space transformed once again. The flickering flames cast a warm, orange light that softened every edge. It became a romantic, cozy nook that felt worlds away from the digital noise of modern life, a true escape in every sense. Through this video, I wanted to show that anyone can create art in their own backyard. It doesn't take a massive budget, it takes a vision and a willingness to work with what you have. This patio is an invitation for everyone to look at their outdoor spaces with fresh, creative eyes. This transformation did more than just change a corner of the yard, it changed how I interact with my environment. I now have a destination for peace that I built with my own two hands. The satisfaction of seeing the vision come to life is the greatest reward any artist can receive. In the end, the DIY tiny rustic patio became more than a landscaping project, it became a sanctuary of recycled dreams. By honoring the past through salvaged materials, I created a future filled with relaxation and beauty. This journey reminds us that with a little creativity, any small space can become a masterpiece of art and tranquility.